All right, welcome into Market Day Report. I'm Scott Shelby. Coming to you from the middle of central Illinois, kind of got the band back together. We're back on the road again. Why don't we take a look and see what these markets are doing? We'll start with corn, and then we can get to our guest analyst. Not a lot happening overnight, but we'll bring up that corn board, and that will show us that we've got, I don't know, it's a little bit of a mixed board, but generally speaking, slightly better. We've got March corn up 0.75 cents to 4.53. A penny and 3/4 off the low of the day and 1/4 cent off the high. These ranges are real tight, folks. We're 1/4 cent higher in the May to 4.62 3/4. So that's corn. Why don't we move over and see how the soybeans have done for us overnight? Soybeans also a little bit lower here, but not by much. And those ranges are a little bit more than we saw in corn. March soybeans down 3.25 cents to 12.37 even. Only a half cent off the lows. And we've had about a 9-cent range. We've got May beans down 3.75 cents to 12.42 3/4, and that too is just a tick off the low of the day. So I would say soybeans are the one that's trading kind of heavy right now, but this is where we've been, and we'll see about how we open up with the regular day session. If we go from the Chicago soybean market, we can check on Chicago wheat and see what we've got going on there. The Chicago wheat market will show us that it's up just a tad, but like the corn market. March is up 1.75 cents to 6.12 1/2. A decent, well, not decent. I guess it's better than anything else. 6 cents in March wheat. We've got we're about 2.5 cents or 1.5 cents off the low of the day there. But we're at 6.12 1/2 in March wheat. That's up 1.75 cents. May's up 1.25 cents to 6.21 1/2. Well, the Chicago wheat market. Let's go check in on the Kansas City wheat market and see what that's got in store for us. That's going to be the hard red in Kansas City, and that's up 3.75 cents in the March to 6.29 1/2. That's 5.5 cents off the low of the day, and we can say that's about 5.25 cents off the high. So between us, I think that's smack dab right in the middle of the day's range. So March wheat in Kansas City, that's the hard red. That's up 3.75 cents, trading 6.29 1/2. Now, if you go all the way out the defers, we start to lose a little real estate. If you go out to the D's contract, that's down 2 cents. To 6.55, and that is unfortunately on the low of the day. So that's the hard red wheat in Kansas City. Why don't we go check on the wheat in Minneapolis and see what the spring wheat looks like for us? And the spring wheat's going to show us that it's got a little bit of an up arrow to it here. We got a 3.25 cent rally going on in the March overnight. 7.07 3/4 was last there. May is up 3.25 cents to 7.12 1/2. So these are the overnight moves we've seen. We'll see if we can continue with those gains when we open up these markets here real soon. Why don't we take a quick peek and see what cotton's got in store for us and how that's been trading. If we go up to see the cotton board, it'll show us that it's got a whole lot of nothing going on, right? March cotton, that was up 7 points overnight to 85.47, and there isn't a lot of movement out there. Even July is sharply unchanged. How about that? All right, let's bring in our next guest analyst. It's going to be Brian Hoops, Midwest Market Solutions. I think I got that right, Brian. It's been a long time since we talked. There, I did get it right. Boy, oh boy, every now and again, a blind squirrel finds a nut. Thanks for being on. All right, it's been great to get out and about. I got to speak to a ton of farmers the last couple of days. And, they've got some concerns, obviously, and this year looks to be maybe a little tighter. What do you think?
Yeah, good morning, Scott. Good talking with you. We saw, exports out this morning, and really uninspiring. And it's going to be hard, I think, to give us some opportunities during this winter months into the spring timeframe for those farmers to get their margins back in line. We've seen inflation hurt the U.S. economy with higher expenses, higher rent costs, higher fuel cost, fertilizer, seed, you name it. And those values are hard to come back and bring into line. So now we have to combat that with hopefully better yields, higher prices, and we're struggling with that right now. And it looks like South America has a great start to their growing season. They're starting to harvest some of their soybeans that are coming in, maybe a little worse than expected, but we've heard a lot of talks about that northern Brazil area where they've replanted about 7 million acres of soybeans after the tearing up the first crop, and those beans have benefited from rains. It's a little dry in Argentina, but there's rains in long-term forecasts, so it's going to be hard to sustain rallies. We had probably about a 20-cent rally in corn, 40 cents in soybeans off of their lows, Now what? Now where do we go? Well, these export numbers that were out this morning, pretty uninspiring. 37.6 million bushels of corn, 20.6 for soybeans, 16.6 for wheat. In fact, if you throw out the 2 holiday weeks with Christmas and New Year's, this is the slowest corn sales week in 12 weeks, the slowest soybean sales in 18 weeks. So I don't know, we're going to get a lot of help out of these export numbers this morning that were released.
That's kind of the tone over the last few days. Absolutely. I ended both of my talks with, other than that, Mrs. Lincoln, how was the play? It's not been a good time out there. So stay right there. We're going to go away. We're going to pay some bills. We're going to come back and talk more with Brian Hoops. Yeah. All right, welcome back. It's time to play or look at the other side of the coin and see what we did yesterday in the ags the livestock before we open up. So let's take a look at what we've got going on in live cattle. What happened yesterday? Well, we had, this is a board that's, I often say, you hear me say, small range, small change, not a lot going on. We had an okay range, almost $2. We were up 70 cents in that fab. Yesterday we closed at 175.35. That'll be our jumping off point today. April's up 52 cents yesterday to 178.35. So we'll see if we can continue that small little rally we had in live cattle this morning when we hit the tape. Let's take a look and see what the feeders had in store for us yesterday. The feeder cattle, they were up as well, but not by much either. We had a March board up just 12 cents to 233.77. And folks, that's just 50 cents off the low of the day there. And we had just over a $2 rally, $2 25 cents higher than the April to 239.80 there. So small uptick there. I'm going to call that steady to a little bit better. We'll see if we can tack on to some of those gains here when we open up. And then finally, let's take a look at lean hogs, and we'll get back to our guest analysts. What do the lean hogs have in store for us? They were the winner yesterday, right? We had Feb up 60 cents to 73.90. But as you go out, the deferreds were up anywhere between $1.12 to $1.70, $1.70 higher in that April, right behind the Feb. 202. All right, we have about 60 seconds left. Let's bring on our guest analyst who's been so patiently waiting in the wings, Brian Hoops. All right, Brian, thank you very much for being on. Real quick, 45 seconds. What do you think about the livestock?
We did have a little cash cattle yesterday, Scott, 174 in the south, about $1 higher. So futures have dialed that in already. The sales this morning, pretty uninspiring for both beef and for pork, and probably going to give us very little direction. There was a cold storage report after the close that the market will have to react to. And I think the hogs rallied into that report, hoping for some bullishness. Pork supplies up 3% from last month, but still down from a year ago. Beef supplies also a little bit higher over the previous month, but still down year over year. So we're starting to rebuild some of those supplies, and packers need to continue to do that. And I think they're going to do that if we get some weakness and at cheaper money.
All right. You nailed it. It's like you have an internal clock like nobody's business. That's when I just got the rap in my ear. So I appreciate that. Perfectly summed up. Great content as usual. Brian, thanks for being with us. Brian Hoops, he's coming to us from Springfield, Missouri. All right. That's it for me. I'm going to have to hand it back over remotely to Tammy.